We have got a fun title, the impact of technology on our urban lives. It's a pretty big topic. I don't think we're going to cover it in an hour. I think we'll maybe just start by scratching the surface. To introduce myself, for those of you who don't know, I am Musawi, and I've been working in art and culture for maybe 16 years now, and actually started my career working with the Saudi contemporary art scene. I worked with Edge of Arabia, one of the first platforms to be supporting contemporary art from Saudi internationally, and there was a lot less artists than there are today. And it's really amazing and inspiring to see how much the scene has grown, to see how many artists there are today, how many opportunities there are, to see how many artists can be artists in Saudi, to see the seeds that we planted all of those years ago really kind of flourishing in the way that they have. When I read the topic for this talk, I remembered a couple of kind of random data points that we would reference way back then. So we're talking nearly 20 years ago. One of the most kind of, a lot of people didn't know about Saudi, and you're kind of sharing information, you're talking about Saudi, and this idea of the fact that there's 70% of the population is under 30, which is a huge demographic. And it's something that we always kind of referenced as a way to paint a picture of what was going on in Saudi. And one of the favorite and really random statistics that one of the founders of Edge Arabia, Stephen, used to always repeat, which was Saudi had the highest per capita YouTube upload rate of anywhere else in the world, which was very random. I don't know if it's still accurate, but I think it just demonstrated that there was an entire generation that was kind of grew up on the internet, and their kind of main access points to the international kind of world was the internet, and all of these subcultures that grew from the emergence of kind of technology. And I think for as long as there has been the internet and screens and technology, artists have been using that as a tool and as a medium to tell their stories and to talk about their practice. And I think we're here to listen to some of the stories that are being told through the lens of technology and sculpture, because I know we've got two artists that are really kind of heavy material artists as much as they have been using technology in their practice. So with that little slightly trembly intro, I'm going to hand over to Khalid to maybe tell us some of the stories of his work.
Yes, hello. My name is Khalid. I am a pixel artist, which is a type of digital art that is reminiscent of like old video games like Atari and Nintendo and things like that. I create like scenery about the modern world in general, but specifically I also create things that relate to Saudi in terms of two elements: the industrial scene, so I like to draw like factories and refineries and things like that, and also the urban scene, which is to show Riyadh as in form of the urban escape of the city. But each scene that I create is imaginary, so I kind of use element of the real world, but I try to combine them to create like an imaginary scene. So I kind of focus on what the place makes me feel like, what's the atmosphere of a certain place, why does it make me feel that way, and I try to chase it each time I create something. There's always a new thing, a new challenge, and I try to kind of understand myself more as I live through this world and as I create through that. I feel like in general, like pixel art, the way that I discovered it was by accident. I wanted to make video games, like creating like small assets and things like that. With a friend of mine, we just had the free time and say, why don't we create a small video game? But I think through working with like creating assets with pixel art, I discovered self-expression in the sense that I can create something that represents a feeling or an emotion that maybe it's very hard for me to describe with written word or with speaking or with anything. So it's kind of how I discovered myself, and I said, okay, I want to learn this medium and kind of express myself with painting digitally and everything. But yes, like for me, I feel like we live in a moment in Riyadh and in general all over the world, like we experienced like an influx with growth and change. And I try to capture this moment where I know for after some time we will look back at them and say, oh, these times were different and things like that. And so with my artwork, I try to focus on the moment of today and how do it relates to me and how do I see it. I think there are elements of technology in my artwork. Obviously, I'm a digital artist, so I rely so much on technology. I relied on the internet so much, actually, because I did not grow up to be an artist, so I had to learn to do art myself. And I found all the resources in the internet, and I found the community from, and a place for me to post my art without kind of needing to fully understand everything, and so that kind of technology helped me in that sense. But also I feel like in terms of technology in the sense of like the urban scape, there are, I think, like one point, which is, I know it's random and specific, but in my artwork, I like, especially during the Riyadh one, I like to capture like the sodium light, which is like very familiar to us, which is the street light in Riyadh that looks orange, that gives the city that look orange. And if I were to give a color palette to Riyadh during the night, it would be orange and gold, because of that light. And recently, every city is kind of changing that type of light, which is to me is interesting because now the switch is to LED street light, which is more yellowish white, sort of has like a natural sunlight thing, and it sort of makes me look at the place differently because so much of light shape the place. If you change the lighting, the feeling of the entire place changes. And I think the entire city is kind of going through that. And I feel like after a couple of years, the entire city will feel different. And in my artwork, I want to hopefully capture this moment before it changes and everything, and the entire kind of light, changes. So I think that's kind of like the big point in my art at the moment, is the sodium lamps. I know it's specific, but yeah, I just wanted to mention.
What color will the city be in 5 years?
It's like similar to this here. So it's kind of like more natural sunlight. Yeah. And it feels different. And in fact, like in Riyadh, or in general in Saudi, we are very nocturnal people. Yeah. So we like to go out during the night. And it's interesting how much of our memory growing up, like, because these lights existed for like as long as I remember. This light has shaped our memory. Like the memory of the light of the night during where I grew up, it's also tinted with orange and gold, but it will change as well. So just an interesting thing to think about because their perception of street light will be completely different in the future. So yeah, I mean, that's a quick introduction about myself. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, but thank you.
It was fantastic. Thank you, Khaled. Well, I have many questions, but we'll come to them at the end.
Test. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Aziz Jamal. I'm a sculptor and a drawer, mostly, but I dabble in all kinds of mediums. My practice is very reliant on improvisation and spontaneity, so I use my ignorance on a lot of fields as a source of inspiration. So me being here as a sculptor doing a digital art panel is very appropriate in that sense. So my relationship to the screen is actually quite a resentful one. I try to avoid it as much as possible, but I feel post-COVID, it is kind of an inevitable relationship that we must have with that element in our lives. So yeah, that's a very quick what else can I say?
That's perfect. No, it was great. It was great. It can be as long or as short as you're comfortable. Amazing. We'll come back. Yeah.
Ciao everyone. I'm Federico Acciardi. Nice to meet you. I'm definitely a boomer, by the way, with a license. I got nothing to do with technology in my life. My practice is mostly sculpting. I'm a sculptor, and this is the first time I challenge myself actually in this exhibition with something that technology. But we live in a world for sure where technology is like completely englobating us. I don't know if this word exists. Enclosing. Incubating, perfect. So for sure we find ourselves constantly into these dynamics of being fast, producing a lot of images, like not focusing constantly on the reality. So in my practice, I never try to make a point or to like bring my sculptures or my works to a result. There are always questions. There are always open questions. Nothing. I don't want to declare nothing as an artist, as a person in this world, for sure. But yeah, maybe the technology in my work in this case was just about the cameras, for real. And in order to bring us to understand what's hidden when we are not focused, you know. So all of these images of these animals that are hidden during the day, and then they come out during the night, is a representation for me of what we forgot about, which is not only like the animals are here, they're living here, but also like we don't consider them when we expand the city, when we grow with the city, we make it bigger, we make it huge constantly. We run, destroy habitats, and then we forget about like simple stuff like people around or animals around. But that's it. I'm a boomer for sure. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Thank you, Federico. Obaid, please. Oh, may we loan a mic? Oh no, we've got one.
Yes.
Obaid will be speaking in Arabic,
Sure.
and I'm relying on Khalid and Aziz to help
Okay.
translate some key points at the end for all of us.
اوكي.
بس please اتفضل.
شكرا جزيلا. يعطيكم العافية. أنا سعيد جدا بحضوري اليوم معكم. اسمي عبيد الصافي، وأعتقد أني أخذت من الاسم الكثير، يعني خصوصا في ترجمة الصحراء. فالحرف الأول بالعربي اللي هو العين، ثم البيد، فأصبح عبيد. البيد هي الصحراء باللغة العربية. فجزء من رحلتي كانت من خلال الصحراء. هذه الصحراء اللي أعتقد أنها أعطتنا الحلم كسعوديين، وأعطتنا الاتساع. الاتساع اللي قاعد يلهمنا يوميا في أعمالنا الفنية. فترجمون بعدين أكمل ولا؟
خالد ميو.
صعب صح؟
قلت قصيدة الصراحة، فيعني ما أدري. How do I translate that?
No, I cut my name, and there is a part of my name. Let's take the name of the desert or the meaning of the desert. So, I in my practice, I think I have this the starting point. It's the desert. So, I grow up in the desert. Yes. I will try to speak in English, but
Mix.
Yeah.
You can do mix.
I will do mix. Okay. So I came with the background of the computer science. So imagine the intersection between, or the difference between the computer science and the desert. And what I found it interesting last night, Aya asking me a question. She told me, it's strange to find this relationship. How can you use the new technology and using the AI through your artwork, and the concept, it's the desert. So I was thinking about this question, and I tried to answer the question. So what I realized, actually, the sand, it's the main source of the all new technology nowadays. So if there is no sound, if there is no sand, there is no technology. There is no screens. There is no CPU, because all the central processing unit, came from the sand. So I think it's the main source for the new technology. Yeah.
Thank you, Arbeid. I was learning actually yesterday on the plane more about Arbeid's work, and he's done a series where he's kind of learning about the geology and the archaeology of Saudi, and referencing the desert and these kind of very primal nature. It's like nature at its core, and then uses AI and technology to kind of 3D print these rocks, and was trying to understand, you know, this kind of, maybe it's an existential philosophical question of like, if you take all of those elements from the earth and then you use them and you have a machine recreate them, is it, and it's holding exactly the same properties and it's the same shape and the same structure, like are they the same rock, one that has been made and generated by a machine and versus one that is like found naturally? And I guess we're always thinking about our relationship, you know, between like nature and us, and how technology is, I guess, you know, affecting and bringing us closer to nature, and sometimes also taking us further away.
What I found it actually interesting, how to, we have, as an artist, we have this concept of transformation. How can we transfer the things from the material to another material? We are crazy about this. So I think when I came at the first time and stay on the desert, I heard many sounds. The first sound, when I asked my grandfather about this sound, he told me this is a camel, but she is crying. So I asked him many questions. Why the camel is crying? And he answered me, he said, because she lost her new baby. So I record one of these sounds, and I, as a material, he stayed in my computer for many years, and I just listened to this sound. After that, I used two algorithms. One of the algorithm, it helps me to convert the sound to 2D picture. So I see how can the technology understand the human feeling or the animal feeling. After that, I convert this sculpture or 2D pictures to sculpture. I think there is a picture for this sculpture. It gives you the feeling of the sound and the feeling of lost, but in another perspective, actually, for the machine perspective. Yeah.
I feel like, Federico, there's a lot of relationship to what you were just saying in terms of human feelings and this idea that you're trying to kind of capture these things that are lost using technology. Am I just seeing that, or is that, I felt like you guys were kind of speaking
I have a
similar
record of
language.
my grandmother like chatting with my grandfather, actually screaming at him. It's the last day I spent with her. I don't feel like I wanted to listen to it, but yeah, definitely like, technology can help us for remember stuff. But what I'm trying to do in my life the most is actually to like bring the people I know the most to my studio, work with them. Even if they're not artists, they give me a lot. And I like to, and I love to remember them the way they are in my studio. So like basically my practice start only about the connection with my friends, my best friend, and they're here, and they're my carpenter, but mostly. So they come to my studio, we spend time together, we drink wine or we chat, and we spend hours there. Sometimes we do other stuff, we don't just do art or whatever, but we work to each other, we spend time together. And sometimes we go and we build exhibitions together. Like when we've been to this abandoned how do you say factory, which was completely destroyed and stuff, and we started to place the sculptures together. My best friend is not an artist, but we were like, you know, learning with each other, within each other, how to manage the space and whatever. And this kind of memories for me are more important when I abandon technology in my life. Like when I'm not connected to it, I remember more. I'm trying to train myself not to use it, not to learn how to remember with it actually, but just to learn with the people that are around me. But for sure, I think that I'm very interested in artificiality, so how we convert the materials into something artificial from the raw matter that it is, to the artificiality of building a sculpture, let's say, in my practice. So it has something to do with the way we transform nature due to our needs constantly. So yeah, basically, I think we're used to be technologists, even if it's not with laptops or screens or whatever. It's just inventing stuff that are used to produce something else. But also, like making an exhibition, and people are coming from a different reality outside. They're living their lives in another way, and then they come here and they pretend that they are inside something different. So also that part is like an interesting moment, you know, where you find yourself in an exhibition, and it's not really the reality. It's like an artificiality of the reality. It's like a recreation of it. So there's always this game between being to something real, being to something not real. Even if you're not thinking or not planning to do it. And the memories, of course, are the same thing. How many memories do we have that are completely not the reality or changed from where we were kids or something? I remember something that I heard from Carmelo Bene, which is a writer, a composer for theater plays. He used to say that if you want to be really an artist, I delete immediately what I just said. But you know, if you want to experience the world with an artistic way, what you have to do is like go back when you were a kid and you were going down in the basement because it was dark and you were surrounded by this darkness because you just want to feel the fear. You know, you just want to be scared. So you go there, you don't know what's there, what's inside. Maybe like just furniture from your mom. In case of my mom, a lot of furniture. You go down there and you find yourself in a scary environment with no sense, with no perception of the space. Then when you turn on the light, you realize everything. And that impact, that moment, is when you need to realize when the artwork has to happen, you know, to be in the darkness without any knowledge of what is around you and catch the moment where to scare people or be scared or be surprised.
I actually did highlight that from your text. You said that you're seasoned with a healthy sense of fear, and I wanted to ask you what scares you, but I think you've just told us that the dark
and snakes
scares
a
you.
lot.
Snakes.
Like a lot.
Yeah, they are scary.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot that you guys have just unpacked. I think this idea of technology as being both our friend and our enemy, and it kind of bringing us closer to humans in some way, and like bringing us closer human connections. You talked about during COVID, we all became, you know, we had to be practicing on the internet, but there's this fear as well with technology that, you know, when we're sitting with our friends and we're distracted on our phones, we can't be entirely present and can't be entirely connected. So there's this constant tension that we're battling, but would love to understand, Aziz, maybe, you know, you mentioned COVID, which was a huge moment for us.
I feel like because COVID, it was really the tipping point where I feel like before that, the concept of being in the matrix was very theoretical and it wasn't really that tangible. But post-COVID, it genuinely is like the phone or your whatever screen that you're using. It is genuinely an extension of your mind at this point. It's not this separate other world that you visit or you just. I mean, the real world now is a break from the screen, as opposed to before where you would kind of disassociate by watching TV or watching your phone or watching YouTube. I feel like that's why we had the most YouTube. I think the thing you mentioned, it was because like people were, it was an escape at the time. I mean, and now it's like the real world is kind of an escape from the screen. So it's kind of like an interesting thing that happened in the last 4 years, in my opinion.
Thank you. Khalid, I'd love to come back now. We're talking about alternate worlds and realities, to kind of, you know, you talk about creating worlds that exist digitally, but they all feel quite visceral. And I would love to know when you're creating them. For me, they feel really nostalgic, and I kind of want to go back to childhood. And I think about, you know, my brother's Nintendo and growing up playing that. And, you know, this idea that there are these alternate universes. And, you know, maybe you remember the movie Space Jam. Yeah, exactly. I see. Yeah. It was my favorite film growing up. I watched it a zillion times. And this idea that, like, for anyone that doesn't remember, it's the one where Michael Jordan gets sucked into a golf hole, and then suddenly he's in like Looney Tunes world, and he's like a real person in this cartoon world. And this idea that it was real. It was always real. And I think, you know, our imagination was such that we wanted that world to exist somewhere. And I feel like your works are kind of creating those worlds that exist somewhere. So would love to know what happens in them, and if you think about the people and characters that exist.
Yeah, I mean, for me, these places, they don't exist. Even though like some of them like represent Riyadh, they're not Riyadh in that sense. For me, I like to, like I said before, I like to focus on the emotion of a place, that kind of what emotion that gives us, so that I don't really pay much attention to the accuracy of the place, rather than the atmosphere and how does it makes one feel. And I actually use like a lot of tools. If I were to make a scene in Riyadh, I would just drive around, take pictures, sketch. But I sometimes need to do something that is, let's say, outside of, let's say, sometimes I'm inspired to do something based on Japan. Obviously, it would be very inefficient to go there for a few sketches and come back, although I'd love to, but. So I use Google Street View, for example, which is a tool by Google. I don't know if it's very famous. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but it takes you to the street, and you start to kind of like inside the car. So it's mapped every street. So what I do is I just take a few hours, just look around and drive in this kind of imaginary city, in this faraway city, and take sketches and everything. And I think through that I try to mix and match and try to make that imaginary place that feels like a real place, but it's not. And also, like pixel art in its own, it's by its own nature. It's very nostalgic. It reminds you of Nintendo and all of that. Although it's not my intention to always make a reference to old video games. But what I like about pixel art is that it has this connotation about it anyway, so I don't need to worry that much about it. But instead, I try to use the medium as a form of self-expression, but it's very limited. It makes me always think everything is limited about it. The colors are limited, the space is limited, so it's always like a puzzle for me to solve and do everything. And that's basically what I do. I mix and match. I guess a funny way to think about it is like I'm a very slow AI generation tool, instead that I have to draw the picture myself, and that's it.
Are there any people in them? They're
No.
usually just scenes.
Well,
right?
yeah. For me, I think people are very powerful ambience because they add a layer of complexity, which is storytelling. So, for example, I could draw the exact same scene. Let's say it's a container port during the night, and there is a worker there with a safety vest inside that scene. What gives me is that this guy works there, for example, right? But if I'd make that the same scene, but instead there was like a shady-looking guy, like with a trench coat, and the entire perception of this scene changes. Like there's probably like a shady deal happening during this. So people are very powerful ambient, and I don't use them all the time because of that reason, because of that storytelling. I like storytelling, but my art is, I like the subtlety, the feeling that is in between feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But people, they give you a story, why they're there, what clothes they are wearing. It's storytelling, so it's an extra question. That's why I don't like to do it all the time unless like I have really something to add to the scene itself. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I don't know what our time is like, but I'd really love to open up the floor to questions from our audience.
Random question, it's fine.
Exactly, really random.
You can ask me what I ate
questions.
today. It's okay.
We can go on about Federico's fears and ask him what scares him. Oh, Mavawi. Here, let's take this over. May I? Ooh. Woo. Oh, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Hello. Wow. Really loud mic. First of all, huge fan of everyone on the panel. I do have a question, and it's something that I perhaps struggle with. Sometimes I depend too much on technology for like references. And do you think, or at least have you faced the issue of feeling like your work is like too, I don't want to say fake, but devoid of of like substance when it's based off of a photo or off of like something you see online?
I think that's a very judgmental view, whoever is giving you that critique.
No, I'm just
I
saying in
think-
general. That's critique of myself, so
Oh,
maybe I
okay.
am judgmental of myself. I have to be.
Yeah, you might be a little bit. I feel like, I mean, as long as the inspiration is genuine, it doesn't matter if it's a meme or if it's like a YouTube comment or if it's anything. I mean, I find the most inspiration on Google reviews. Like, my favorite stories and drama happens underneath like Google reviews source. So I find that actually very inspiring. So I think inspiration comes wherever you find it. It doesn't matter the source, if it's like on a screen or if it's in a random corner at a store. But yeah.
For me, I use reference in every work. They're important to me. Sometimes the reference is just about the colors or like the feelings or anything. But like I think Aziz said, like you just go with it, you know. If let it all go organically. Even if your brain tells you, and I know those feelings, like your brain tells you, oh, you took too much from this reference, you know. Is it? No, it's always you. It's always your art, and just let it go organically. And usually in retrospective, when you look back at that artwork, you say, oh, actually, there is me in that artwork. You might not see it now, but just wait, you know. Yeah.
You guys, I think, sculptures, so it's hard for you to you know.
I get inspired from my people. I told you, it doesn't matter like if it's Instagram or not Instagram. I always humans doing stuff, which is the most important thing. Like people fighting, arguing about something, like dogs that have to fight for something. It's the same thing. I'm not saying how to. I'm not instructing anyone for sure. It can be Instagram, can be TikTok, can be whatever. It's the way you treat it. Maybe that's most important. Doesn't matter where it comes from, but maybe not TikTok.
يعطيك العافية على السؤال. اسمحي لي بتكلم بالعربي لأنه يمكن أقدر أشرح أكثر. في خوف كثير من التقنية خصوصا عند الفنانين أو المتلقين، يعتقدوا أنه التقنية ربما تضعف العمل الفني. واعتقد من شخص تخصص في التقنية قرابة 10 سنوات والآن قاعد أمارس الفن باستخدام التقنية. أعتقد أن التقنية أعطتني أنه أقدر أحول الشكل من مجرد حتى شكل رقمي إلى منحوتة. فالأسبوع الماضي كنت في توك مع مجموعة من الفنانين اللي ينحتون بالصخور. اكتشفت أن أغلب الفنانين اللي ينحت بالصخر ما زال يستخدم التكنيك أو يستخدم تكنيك 3D كأنه قاعد يطبع 3D printing وفي نفس الوقت قاعد يكبرها كسكيل. فما أعتقد أنه يجب أن نخاف من هذه التقنية، لأنه التقنية ممكن تودينا مرحلة متقدمة في العمل الفني، وفي مرحلة ما أعتقد أنه المسميات تضعف، لأن نقول فن حديث فن معاصر. في مرحلة ما ربما ما يعني الكونتمبري آرت أو الفن المعاصر سيصبح فن حديث، لأنه تقدمت التجربة وتقدمت التقنية وتغير شكل الفن.
Well, I mean, all the answers were great, very insightful.
شكرا.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pierre Sieg from Switzerland. We have an art foundation, and especially we specialize in art residencies and in digital. We have the pleasure to know, of course, Khaled, who has been working for the residency, and some of you as well, as made. And my question is, today, you know, the world is facing a lot of critics with AI. And most people now start to critique and to attack ChatGPT because they say that finally human beings are losing their own imagination. I really don't agree with you, because if you think about ChatGPT, they feed ChatGPT with millions of data, and yourself as an artist, you can still use all those data. You save a lot of time, because you cannot go for thousands of years back to get the information. Then what I want to know for all of you is, what is a percent of AI, of that computer information you use in your own work? Is it 5%, 10, 50% or more doesn't make any difference for me, but I think it would be very interesting to know what is the really content of the AI you use in your own work. Because finally, as a human, as an artist, you have the final word.
It's an interesting question for sure, because AI has been it's been the subject of a lot of controversies and like talks and everything. A lot of people have opinions about it. As an artist, the way that I see it is, first of all, I think it's too late to try to stop it, even if you want to. Second of all, I think it's a useful tool in the way that you use it. For me, I don't use AI that much, but I use it in things outside of art to learn a new language, for example. I use AI, and but at the same time, I used AI in the past to generate references that is very specific to me, that it helped me create the art. So I would type specifically what I want, and the AI generated, and it's very useful in that sense. I think it's too early to determine what AI is going to be, but it's very clear that it's a very, very powerful tool, and the application of it, so far has been like always been, I don't know. It's an interesting subject. I do use AI myself, and sometimes, not all the time, when I don't have a reference, but that's the extent of I use it. But me personally, as a person, I'm not against it in any way, unless you use it in a wrong way, of course. There's also been news about that recently, where people use people likeness and things like that, or people voices. Now that's like a crazy territory we're entering, and it's going so fast. So I don't know how to answer this one, to be honest, and how to stop it, even if we want to. Yeah.
I don't think we can.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. It's been created.
Yeah, I think for me, the AI, it's like a tool. You can use it as you want. You can train your own data, and you can take the result from your own data. So the machine or the way you see the machine result, it's not the result of the machine. It's the result of your artwork, but you see it in another perspective. And this actually conversation, it's reminding me of when the photographies came, and the people that hate the photography, and they said, we as a realistic painter, there is no painter, or there is no one who can paint. But nowadays, there is a photography, and there is a painter, and there is a AI. So at the end, it's a tool, if you use it in a right way, that will help you. This is my perspective, actually.
I've never used AI in my life. Never.
I don't even know what ChatGPT is, to be honest.
But I'm a big supporter of every human invention, even the most worst one that can bring us to destroy and lose our integrity. Is all material that I can use to understand humans more. So if AI is helpful somehow, definitely support it. I think it's gonna bring us in the wrong way, for sure. But it's also super helpful in terms of medicine and hospital and stuff. But I never used it in my life. Especially not for my practice, especially not for research materials, not to create images. I'm still super young. I have like an imagination that expands constantly, and as I said, I'm training not to use technology for this kind of stuff.
Aziz,
I don't even know what ChatGPT is. I've never used. I don't even know where people like go to do it. Like, is it a website?
Yeah.
That ChatGPT.
www. Who uses that anymore? That's so retro.
Yeah, we're boomers.
It's OpenAI, yeah, the company, OpenAI. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you all said, it is basically how you use it. I mean, I love AI-generated images. I think it's the funnest thing ever. I love like superimposing random people in like Saudi culture stuff, like Oprah having lunch at Mama Noura, or like I don't know. I just use it to have fun. I don't know. So.
And we should. Does anyone? Are there any more questions? Because I think we've got some conclusions. It's too late to stop AI. It can be good or evil depending on how you want to use it and how much Black Mirror you watch. Federico is afraid of the dark and snakes. Technology is... Other people are afraid of the dark and snakes. Where did I get snakes from?
Yeah, no one said snakes.
No one said snakes.
I think you hate snakes.
Did I just hear snakes? He did. You said snakes.
I'm terrified of snakes. Yeah.
Okay.
But also, like, they're an amazing animal to discover, understanding the mythology, and symbolize a lot of things. The snake eating his own tail, regenerating by the death. It's very interesting. But don't show me one.
Have you seen snakes on a plane?
One what?
Snakes on a plane.
Oh, the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually it came up on a Google forum. They put out a notice of what is the most ridiculous film that you could possibly make, and someone put a snakes on a plane, and then they did it, and it's pretty ridiculous.
But I remember something when I was a kid. That's why I'm scared of snakes, to transform it to something interesting maybe. The way we humans are aggressive with each other and with the rest of the nature, for me, is very interesting, and it's always in my practice. Clear. When I was a kid, why I'm afraid of snakes, I was invited by this friend's house with my parents. I was a kid, and there was this guy, the father of the family, who had a collection of dead snakes in jars. Something we do, also my friend does. We put snakes in alcohol, in jars. So when you catch it in the field or whatever, because they're kind of dangerous, even if they're not, we used to collect them. So I remember this huge collection of jars full of snakes, and this guy was trying to scare me. He was showing me one, and showing me like this, and I got scared a lot. So this thing of being aggressive to each other shows, reveal us, even with a kid, even with reveal us the reality we're living now, right now, especially. And I don't understand why. Asking AI.
I don't know if they have the answer to that, sadly. Khalid, were you about... Did I see the mic close to you? Did you want to add a conclusion? Did you have a conclusion? I have that technology is both good and bad for human connection. So, spend enough time on it, but not too much time on it, and stay connected to people. And that Riyadh is currently gold and orange, but in the future it might be pink. So I think those are conclusions. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you all for being a receptive audience.